This Sunday is Mothering Sunday. Simeon said to his mother Mary, "And a sword will pierce your own heart too." When I was 16, I bought a book in Southport. I started reading it in the street and read it all the way home in the car. I wasn't driving, my grandmother was. The book was Thomas Hardy's Tess of the D'Urbervilles. I think I fell in love with Tess as I read her story and felt sorry for her as she moved from one disaster to another. It is at times a truly agonising read. There is one bit in the book that I have never forgotten. This is when Tess has become an unmarried mother, and because she is, her father will not allow her to send for the vicar when Tess realises that her newborn child is likely to die unbaptised. So at night, with the help of her younger brothers and sisters, Tess baptises her newborn son herself. She names him Sorrow. The child dies and Tess goes to the vicar to ask him to bury her baby. The vicar refuses to do this because he himself has not baptised the child. Tess persuades the sexton to bury her baby. And Hardy writes, "So the child was carried in a small deal box under an ancient woman's shawl to the churchyard that night and buried by lantern light, at the cost of a shilling and a pint of beer to the sexton, in that shabby corner of God's allotment where the nettles grow and where all unbaptised infants, notorious drunkards, and others of the damned are laid." Tess makes a simple cross and stands it on her son's grave. She picks some wildflowers and puts them in a little jar of water to keep them alive. The next sentence that Hardy writes is the one that I remember so well. "What matter was it that on the outside of the jar the eye noted the words Keelwell's Marmalade? The eye of maternal affection did not see them in its vision of higher things." Tess, the mother, sees beyond the marmalade jar that she has used on her son's grave to show her love with flowers. She sees beyond the priest, who is unable to see beyond the conventions of his day. She does for her child the best that she possibly can. Think of another Mary, Mary, the mother of Jesus. She too breaks with the rules of her time in order to give birth to Jesus, and in so doing she puts her trust in God. A few days after her baby boy is born, Mary and Joseph take him to be blessed at the temple in Jerusalem. It is here that the family meets Simeon. Simeon is an old man who tells the family that this child will be destined for great things, that he will be opposed by many people, but that he will reveal God to all nations. Simeon says that this will not happen without pain and sorrow. The old man turns to the young mother and says, "And a sword will pierce your own heart too." Mary loves and cares for her son, and she sees him grow to manhood. 33 years on, and the words of Simeon must have come back to her as she stood or perhaps knelt at the foot of the cross, as her dying son gave her into the care of his friend John, and John found himself with a new mother. And then she watched her child die the very cruelest of deaths. Mary heard her son's first breath, and she was there when he took his last breath. I think that somehow Mary knew right from the beginning what was to come. We're told that she pondered all these things in her heart. Her anguish becomes the anguish of every mother who has ever lost a child. Mother's Day, which is celebrated on the second Sunday of May in America, was born out of the death, destruction and loss of mothers for their sons in the cruelest of wars, a civil war. Our war memorial holds the names of lost sons and daughters, as all war memorials do. Mothers are still losing children in wars and conflicts around our world today, and in the famine and homelessness which these things produce. We only have to switch on the news to see and hear tragic stories from Myanmar, Syria, Iraq, Somalia, South Sudan, Yemen, and so many other places in our world. Too many mothers today know exactly how Mary, the Mother of God, suffered and felt on that Good Friday 2,000 years ago. Some mothers have no children. One childless mother was Teresa, the nun who founded the Order of the Sisters of Charity. She saw people dying on the streets of Calcutta, some too weak to drive away the rats and the ants that were feeding on them. Mother Teresa founded the Sisters of Mercy, made of people who would care for old and young, for the forgotten and the neglected, and simply give them dignity. Teresa, like Tess and Mary and mothers across the world, would be there to watch over those whom she called her children, those who needed her care and her love. Although childless, Teresa was called Mother because she had one of the biggest families on earth. Mother Teresa would say to those she worked with, "Let us do something beautiful for God." And this she did time and time again. Mothering Sunday is a day when we can think of what God has given us in human relationships. So to use one mother's words, let us today and every day, especially in these troubling times, try our best to do something beautiful for God.